Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peej.
And I'm Mac.
Mac, what are we talking about today?
Well, this episode is going to be we've kind of gone away from the Pacific Northwest recently. We want to get back into the Pacific Northwest, and so this is going to be about some kind of terrifying true crime stories that we've had in this area. There's one that I didn't put in this or that I didn't plan for this particular episode because you've already covered it. Was the Rajneeshpuram? They call it a bio attack. So that's another one I skipped.
Sure.
But I definitely want to give credit to the Northern Crimes folks who made this video.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of some crime that I sort of remember as a kid, but I sort of forgot about. So let's just dig in.
All right. Well, as usual, folks, I have not seen this video. Mac found it, so all credit and blame will go to him.
Blame.
So we'll start things off here.
You're watching Northern Crimes.
The picturesque northwest state of Oregon is known for its breathtaking landscapes, bustling cities, and friendly people. But behind this beautiful facade lies a dark history of shocking events that have shaken its people to their core. From gruesome murders that have gone unsolved for decades to a bioterror attack that left hundreds ill, Oregon's history of crime is nothing short of disturbing. This is Northern Crimes.
I think I meant to start this a little bit later, but that's okay. We are giving them some credit, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Give credit where credit's due.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to say 108.
There you go.
Yeah, that's totally what I meant to do. Now, this is one of the things I was talking about. I remember this as a kid.
Diane Downs was a divorced mother of 3 and a postal worker living in Springfield, Oregon. On the night of May 19th, 1983, Downs claimed that she and her children had been ambushed by a stranger on a rural road. She stated that the attacker shot her children and then shot her in the arm before fleeing the scene. Somehow, Downs was able to drive herself and her children to the hospital, but sadly, her daughter Cheryl was dead on arrival.
That's the daughter?
Initially, police believed Downs' version of events, even going as far as recreating the scene. However, during the investigation, police began to uncover inconsistencies in her story. For example, the description of the alleged attacker changed over time. Additionally, Downs didn't appear to be as upset or emotional as one would expect from a mother whose children had been shot.
Yep.
As the investigation continued, police discovered that Downs had a complicated history, including a previous failed attempt to kill her own children.
This is messed up.
They also learned that Downs had been seeking attention and sympathy from men, and that her desire to be with a new love interest may have played a role in the attack. Eventually, police found evidence that suggested that Downs had shot her own children. Ballistics testing showed that the bullets used in the attack came from Downs' own gun. In court, Downs maintained her innocence and continued to claim that a stranger had attacked her and her children. But the evidence was too strong, and she was found guilty on all counts. The Diane Downs case is a chilling reminder of the lengths that some people will go to for attention or personal gain, and the devastating consequences that can result. The case continues to be studied and discussed by criminologists, psychologists, and true crime enthusiasts, and remains one of the most haunting and disturbing cases in Oregon's history.
Yeah, and again, I kind of remember that being not just local news, but kind of national news. It was kind of sensationalized. It's a very old case, but I mean, the fact that and I guess it's kind of pointing to kind of where law enforcement was back in those days, that she already tried to kill her kids and
Hmm.
they didn't take her kids away. And that's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. And the fact that they started, or they noticed that she wasn't as remorseful, or not remorseful, but not as worried, or not as stricken. Is that the word? Is that a word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I
For
mean, I
some, for a
guess,
mother
yeah,
to have, to have just lost a child or have had her children shot. It kind of reminds me of, or at least that um, description of the distraught, parent, or a
right.
would be distraught parent. Reminds me of that Chris Watts case in, where
Mm.
is that? Was that in Utah or something like that, where he killed his pregnant wife and two daughters,
Oh,
and
geez.
then
Yeah.
reported them as missing. And you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I think I remember something about that. I mean, the sad thing is there's so many true crime cases around the U.S. and around the world, and
Yeah,
that we have to deal with. But I can imagine not knowing all the details of this case, just looking at this video, that Diane Downs probably shot herself in the arm.
yeah,
So that kind of shows the craziness. And again, she was trying to get the attention of guys, which
yeah.
is
That's
even more disturbing.
so weird, so weird. And
Yeah.
by the way, so I think that's supposed to happen it was supposed to have happened in Springfield,
Yes.
right? Which
Yeah.
where is that? Is that
It's
uh
around, I think, in north of Eugene, I think,
oh, okay.
Oregon. And I think that's the Springfield, Oregon that Matt Groening has used as not the Springfield, Ohio, where they're eating cats and dogs, but the Springfield, Oregon, where they're actually Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, has kind of got his the name for
Got it. True.
Simpsons. Yep.
Well, that at least that Simpsons was a better story to come out of Springfield. All
Indeed.
right, let's move on here.
And now this is a very interesting case. And I remember this too, way back in the day.
On the cold winter day of January 17th, 1989, the chilling winds of Salem, Oregon, carried with them an ominous foreboding. As the sky grew darker, Michael Francke, the head of the Oregon Department of Corrections, was engrossed in his work. He finally left the office at the DOC headquarters and headed to his car amidst a mostly deserted parking lot. The time was around 9 p.m. Suddenly, out of the shadows, an unknown assailant attacked Francke, stabbing him multiple times. Despite making it back to the office, Francke eventually succumbed to his injuries, collapsing within the walls of his office. The brutal attack left a trail of unanswered questions, shrouded in a cloud of mystery, which haunts investigators to this day. The murder of Michael Francke sent shockwaves through the Salem community and beyond. As news of the brutal attack spread, people were stunned that such a high-profile figure could be targeted in such a violent manner. In the aftermath of the murder, authorities launched what would become the longest and most expensive homicide investigation in Oregon history.
I didn't
Really?
recognize that
Detectives
building.
interviewed witnesses,
Oh,
combed
yeah.
through surveillance footage, and gathered evidence in an attempt to solve the case. Then, in 1990, a small-time meth dealer named Frank Gable was arrested for Francke's murder. The following year, he was convicted and sentenced to life
son
in
of
prison
Clark Gable.
without parole. But that wasn't the end of the story. Over the years, Gable vehemently maintained his innocence. At one point, another man even confessed to the crime, but authorities didn't charge him. Finally, in a stranger-than-fiction turn of events, Michael Francke's two brothers came to the defense of Gable, urging the courts to release him. And in 2019, nearly 30 years
crazy.
after his conviction, Frank Gable walked out of prison a free man. But this still begged the question, who murdered Michael Francke? The unsolved nature of the case has left many people frustrated and bewildered. How could such a high-profile crime go unsolved for so long? Who could have committed such a heinous
nice
act,
panorama
and
there of
why?
the Portland area.
Mhm.
The Michael Francke murder remains one of the most puzzling and enigmatic unsolved cases in Oregon's history.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a movie script to me, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Uh,
and so that happened in '89. So that was 2 years after I
uh,
got here to the U.S. But
yeah.
that last name rings a bell to me somehow.
Well, I mean, you were here, and it was all over the news. And again, you've got a guy like that, like Frank Gable, the meth dealer, who looked like he didn't look like he was on any kind of drugs to me. He kind of looked like he didn't think he was going to get in that photo that they showed. It almost looked like he didn't think he was going to get convicted. He was like, I didn't do this,
Right.
right? But again, then and somebody apparently confessed to it in prison, but they just like, oh well, that's just some crazy person. I mean, you don't investigate that kind of stuff. Come on. I mean, that shows a little bit of a problem with the American justice system as far as that goes. It took the two brothers of the guy who actually ended up getting killed to like help get the guy released, and now it's an unsolved case again. And I mean, that's what 35 years ago, 36 years ago.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to find, and that was before I think all the DNA stuff still, or maybe it was at the very beginning of that.
Do
It's
you,
going to be very difficult to find out who did that.
right. Do you know why the brothers advocated for him?
I think it's because I think they looked at the evidence of the case, and they also spoke with Frank Gable quite a bit too, and
Right.
plus they took into account that someone had confessed to it in prison. And if you look at those things, over time, and probably the amount of effort that they put into looking into it. Again, we're kind of reacting to this video. I don't know all the details, but I feel like they ended up believing him, and they released him. It wasn't because of anything that probably he said. It was more of the fact that the family, and plus looking at all the extenuating circumstances, they ended up letting him go. That's a crazy story that still is as an unsolved mystery still.
I'm just curious why, or not curious, but I'm actually sort of amused that meth, which is such a, it's a drug of ill repute, obviously, but then it's more like been in the, I don't know, the American psyche for like, I'm thinking only like the last 10 years. But this one was
Oh, it's been
back
way
in
longer than
1990.
that.
No, but what I'm saying is like, like a
Yeah.
meth head or a meth dealer or whatever, um, was really popularized, I think, by that show Breaking Bad, right? When you say?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, popularized, but I mean, I think Salem, Oregon has always been a meth city.
That, that's true. And for those of you who are not familiar, Salem, Oregon is south of Portland, Oregon, and I don't know, maybe like 40 miles or maybe even longer than that,
Yeah,
further than
like
that.
45 to 50 miles is about an hour and a half drive, depending on the traffic. But yeah.
But to your point, yes, I think because Salem, Oregon, you're right. I think meth would have been pretty popular even back then. All right, let's continue here.
Now, this one, I've never heard of this one before. I don't, and
On
I should
January
have remembered this
17th,
one.
1994, the Leathers Oil Company in Gresham, Oregon, was the site of a brutal and unsolved mass murder. Virginia K. Endicott, Rosalie Faye Gertz, and Mary Beth Carey, all employees of the gas station, were found shot to death in a storage room on the premises. The station was also robbed of approximately $9,000.
Which
At
should
the
now be
time,
about
the
like
case received
30 or
national attention
$40,000.
and was branded as one of the most notorious murders in the Pacific Northwest. Tyrone Walter Thies, a former employee who had been terminated for stealing in August 1993, was charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder. However, he disappeared a few weeks after the victims' bodies were discovered. Thies's cousin, Lawrence Benjamin Scherf, and his friend, Lori Ann Stevens, were both convicted and served 10 years in prison for their role as accessories to the murders. The Leathers Oil Company murders created a ripple effect throughout the community of Gresham and remained a dark cloud over the town for many years.
It's a bit
The
bigger
fact
than a
that
town.
Thies
But
was
that's all
never
right.
brought to justice added to the pain felt by the victims' families and the wider community. The case has been profiled on national television, including Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most
Robert
Wanted,
Stack.
in the hopes of generating leads. Law enforcement believes Thies is still alive, probably residing in the United States under a false identity. The Leathers Oil Company murders remain unresolved to this day, serving as a tragic reminder of the devastating impact that violence can have on our communities. The victims' families continue to seek closure and justice for their loved ones, and the case remains open in the hopes that someday the perpetrator will be brought to justice.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah, I don't. I kind of remember hearing about that, but I think at that point Gresham was a lot different than it is now. That was more of an affluent suburb of not like Lake Oswego, which is a rich area, or like West Lynn, but it was not the place that it is now,
Right.
where all the inner city folks who couldn't afford housing kind of moved out to that area. Now that's kind of what Gresham is now. It's a little much different than it was then. And uh and did I hear that his name was Tyrone?
I think
Because
so.
that okay, I'm not going to bring the other show to this show, but that's a very strange it's very strange back. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, the fact that he hasn't been caught is even more surprising to me, because he can try to change his appearance, but in general, they get the photo of the perpetrator, they're going to find. So I almost think that the guy is probably not alive anymore. He
Oh,
probably
and by the
died.
way, quick fact check. It's Tyrone, Tyrom.
That's even weirder of a name than it was before. But yeah, I mean, I would say that I don't think they're ever going to get closure, because it feels like they would have caught him, but he doesn't look like the brightest bulb in the book. And I feel like he probably would have been caught. So I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
I
Maybe
feel I feel bad for the families.
maybe he's shacking up with DB Cooper somewhere.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, there you
So
go.
just another fun fact: $9,000 in 1996 is about $18,000 in today's money.
Oh, I thought it'd be much more than that. Okay, well, it's still a lot of money. I mean, that's pretty good money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, back in those days.
All right,
But
let's
sad,
continue.
sad.
It is sad. Let's continue.
On October 1st, 2015, a 26-year-old man named Christopher Harper Mercer walked into a classroom at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon, and began shooting at students. The incident was sudden, and many students were caught off guard. Harper Mercer fired his weapon for several minutes before law enforcement arrived and evacuated the students. During that time, many students took cover under desks and hid in corners, while others tried to escape the building through windows or doors. After engaging in a firefight with law enforcement, a wounded Harper Mercer retreated into a classroom and killed himself with a single shot to the head. When the dust settled, 9 people were killed, with an additional 8 wounded. The incident sparked a national debate about gun control laws and mental health issues. It was later revealed that Harper Mercer had a history of mental illness and legally purchased all of his firearms. Many people questioned how someone with a history of mental illness could obtain a gun so easily, and whether there should be more stringent background checks in place. In the aftermath of the shooting, the Umpqua College community came together to support one another and honor the victims. Students, faculty members, and members of the city gathered for vigils and memorials to remember those who lost their lives. The Umpqua Strong Memorial Garden was later created on the campus as a permanent tribute to the victims. The Umpqua Community College shooting remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in Oregon's history. While the shooting itself only lasted a few minutes, its impact was far-reaching and long-lasting. The tragedy affected not just the families of the victims, but also the wider community of Roseburg.
You know what's so sad about that is I don't remember that at all being
I
in the news.
vaguely remember it.
Yeah, I think the sad thing is that the static of of mass shootings is so common now that it kind of drowns out some of that stuff. I really don't remember that shooting very much at all. And for anybody listening who wants to, Roseburg is pretty far south of the Portland, Oregon area. 4, maybe 3-4 hours drive down I-5, and maybe that's why. But I feel like I think it's kind of sad that we don't remember it as much as we probably should. But I mean, that it goes to show how common these kind of mass shootings are in the country, and how it's become a little bit of a way of life, which is pretty sad.
It is sad. I mean, first of all, we're talking about that it was just 9 years ago, right?
It wasn't that long, yeah.
It wasn't that long, and there'd obviously been mass shootings before then and mass shootings afterwards. And it's, disheartening that each mass shooting, of course, people, always are questioning whether we should have stricter gun laws and whatnot. And
Thoughts and prayers and all that good stuff.
yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe it matters, maybe it does not. But Roseburg, Oregon, is probably in a county that's fairly red.
It is, and if you look at the photos of the people there with their their candles and whatnot, I mean, it kind of shows the divide and of where people think that the Second Amendment overrides everything. The Second Amendment, without getting too political, was meant for things like muskets, and things and swords and things of that kind of thing.
Right.
It wasn't meant to be something that is now with AR-15s. I don't think we would go back and ask the founding fathers if that was part of what they were trying to do.
Right.
So,
but yeah, it's obviously, I think that there's a lot of stuff that happened in Oregon, right? And in fact, I mean, I would say that even like the Clackamas Town shooting,
I remember that
the
one. That was more
Clackamas
recent,
Town,
I think.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
Clackamas Mall, Clackamas Town
Clackamas
Center.
Mall. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have
Got
a
a special
cameo.
guest to the show there. Yeah.
But the Clackamas Town
All right.
Center shooting,
Go on.
when did that happen?
That seems like it's like 2018, maybe. Jackson, go out of here now. Go, please.
2012. So
Was it that long ago? So it was even before that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this was even before, and I think this might have been, honestly, I think there like a string of years where like mass shooting after another was happening. Right?
Yeah, there was another Portland high school where that happened too. I think it was in East Portland. I can't remember the name of the school. Was it Franklin? Maybe where that happened. Okay, go. Thank you.
Let's see here. But at any rate, I mean, I think Oregon is not immune from these types of crimes, right? And I think, to your point from earlier, depending on where it happens, is probably it kind of plays into whether it's more in the front of our memory versus in the back, right? I mean, I vaguely remember that Umpqua college shooting, just because it's I don't know, the name Umpqua that kind of jumps out at you,
The ice cream is all I think about is the ice, is the amazing ice cream that they have. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of where it is at now. I mean, as far as that, to me, the most interesting story out of all that was the Diane Downs and the Michael Francke murder, which is fascinating, and I'm surprised they haven't been made not Hallmark, but like maybe with the Diane Downs, it'd be more like what's that one channel with all that has Snapped on it? Is
History?
You know what I'm talking about? No, it isn't
No.
History. It's like a female channel that talks about female murderers and stuff like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, and then the other one, the Francke one, would be on like Court TV or some weird, or like A&E or something. It seems like it should have been an A&E special. Maybe it is.
Probably. And, and I would think that also that, I don't know, wouldn't there have been a, eyes in the sky type of situation, Big Brother watching even back then? Wouldn't there have been a lot of security cameras even back then?
Not really. I mean, and the ones even now are kind of ridiculous. It's like, we can use a satellite to spot somebody like an ant on the ground, but it seems like every security camera footage just like from like the 1960s, you can't see anything. It's ridiculous. So
Absolutely.
I don't know what's up with that.
Well, if you enjoy this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe, and on YouTube, hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.